Up, y'all? It's Araneae Storm checking in for, I don't want to call it the retrograde series, but hey, we're gonna dive into that retrograde. I don't think I've really talked about retrogrades yet, but we're gonna get into it. So for those of y'all that's checking in for the first time, I am Araneae Storm, your Cosmic Rootwork astrologer, specializing in Mars activations as well as North Node and South Node consultations. So if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can hit me up on all social media, but specifically araneastorm.ways.com/info, and you can find me on all social media at Araneae Storm. I wanted to talk specifically about this retrograde because even though we have an Mercury in Libra retrograde, which I will talk a little bit about on this video, and then I'll probably do a series that goes extensively into the retrograde planets and what it means when specific energy or planet is retrograding and what that means or what that could mean in your chart. I did want to talk about the retrograde in general only because I feel like, in a way, like even pre-retrograde, we are going through this retrograde energy. We have like 6 or 7, I think, planets right now in retrograde, and then Mercury and Libra is going to join this retrograde phase. So I really wanted to kind of tap into what that means, like just in general, of a text of like, what does it mean when a planet is in retrograde, give a little bit of background about what the retrograde comes into, and then how you can actually work with the retrogrades and what it means also when energy or a planet, I'll touch on it a little bit, but what that means to be direct as well. So yeah, this is a little info. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. I did want to also touch on the Two of Pentacles, which also came up for me, especially talking about the Mercury retrograde in Libra, and we'll get into that as it relates to the loops around the nodes of the earth. So if it's your first time coming in, like I tell all, welcome to the humble abode. You feel me? I hope that this information gets to you or gets to who it needs to get to at the time that you're viewing this. And yeah, let's get into it. So retrograde planets. So when we talk about Mercury retrograde, of course, I know in the community you probably hear internet's going down, or technology acting crazy, or relationships all hazy, or you thought you sent that email, you didn't send that email, or you thought you saved something but it actually got deleted. So we hear all this, and like most people are like so scared to the point where they so scared of going out for Mercury retrograde. People don't want to do nothing because they don't want to, you know what I'm saying? But really, I do also feel, we do talk about the slowdown, like the actual speed of the planets, like slowing down, like a time to like basically come back into review. But I also think that, a retrograde is honestly, especially if you're used to taking your time with things, or you're basically working in that energy of like patience, I feel like retrogrades can be really, really good for that. If you're a type of person that like all you do is like you go, you boom, 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 you never stop, you don't want to stop, you a no sleep motherfucker, like a no sleep, we going and going. Retrogrades might be a little bit frustrating for you because this is a time of pulling back, where you want to go off and do the thing, go off and, you know what I'm saying? Like this retrograde is really a time of being able to like really pull back your energy and kind of go back to that drawing board and see like what's working for you and what's not. So it talks about passing or being passed by planets when closest to the earth. The earth's energy passing by the planets and things like that. Like I said, a time to review, going back to the drawing board. This can be in any part of your life. It doesn't have to be specifically. You want to see what planets the retrogrades are actually moving through right now. As like I said, we have a couple of planets, about 6 or 7 planets that are going through retrograde at the time as we speak right now. Honestly, I'm not gonna touch on Venus and Scorpio now, but honestly, Venus and Scorpio feels like as we move into that towards the end of the month, it feels like also it's not a retrograde planet, or it's not going to be in retrograde, but it feels like a retrograde. So just get ready for that, and I will talk about that more in the month. I do have a video on Venus and Scorpio, but I'll also talk about the transits and what it means to transit through the houses and things like that too as well. So there was something that mentioned this 8 loops, and I went super deep in the 8 loops around the earth and location of the nodes. So these loops that formulate around the earth and intersects Earth's orbit, and how that moves around. And it honestly reminded me of the affinity symbol. I don't know why, but that came up for me, which led me to the 2 of Pentacles. So for those of y'all, I'm not going to divert too much, but for those of y'all that are actually into tarot, if you ever seen that card of the 2 of Pentacles, of like it looks like a joker or a jester or something, like juggling these 2 coins. To me, I went deeper into that, and I'll go a little bit into that as we move on, but I did want to kind of stick a pin in that, like why this like loop. Also too, I thought of Capricorn, because 8 rules the energy of the number Capricorn, so I also thought about that. And when we just briefly talk about Saturn, and just being, because Saturn is also in retrograde at this point, when we briefly talk about, for example, the energy of Saturn, Saturn needs you to get back into that energy of like discipline and regrouping and organizing and being strategic about, the next moves that you're going to make. And regardless of what it is, it's a needing to go back. Honestly, retrograde does remind me of Saturn energy. It's like, it really is. It honestly reminds me of Saturn energy, or the planet of Saturn. And it also reminds me, even though Mars is more direct, it just reminds me of like the general putting in like the plan, like I talk about in the videos, or the Aries videos, or I think the Mars videos that I did, just talking about like putting that plan on the board, like, all right, we finna hit this camp, this base, like we, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very strategic in that way. What we talk about, so when it goes direct, when retrograde comes out of going backwards, and we're talking about the forward movement of this energy, this is when the earth is closer to the sun. So retrograde is more like you're contemplating something, you're going over, or having to, like I said, go back to the drawing board and kind of revise, reiterate, redo the reads, all the reads that you could think of. Direct is moving forward with whatever you plans that you made, or whatever changes that you decided that you wanted to make within that retrograde period. You know what I'm saying? In a world that feeds and thrives off of like movement and going forward and pushing through, and that really masculine kind of energy, I feel like retrogrades can be a little bit more on the feminine side in regards of like receptivity, listening to the messages, you know what I'm saying, taking time to rest, taking time to think before making that next move, taking the time to, you know what I'm saying? So really being in that space of contemplation and reviewing and reflection, and allowing yourself to do that within this time, or within these times. Specifically, of course, for Mercury, but all the planets that have been in retrograde for the time that they've been. And so I also found out, like, when they talk about 3 retrograde planets, if you have 3 or more retrograde planets, this is a very rare thing to have, but we see it. But this is a needing to go and find your own way. So if things are not working out, especially if you see during this retrograde period, if things aren't working out, if things are like slipping or breaking apart or falling apart, or that goes for relationships, that goes for like cars, technology, transportation. If things, definitely take heed. I'm not saying that you have to make a split decision in that time, because retrograde is not really a time of making like a split decision and saying, okay, I'm gonna go, you know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm gonna go with it, I'm gonna do it. This is more so scaling back and being like, you know what? I'm actually gonna take my time with this. I'm actually gonna take my time and see maybe why this isn't working, or why this isn't, you know what I'm saying, moving forward. And why I need to kind of revisit whatever this is and address it. And those things will come up during the retrograde, because like I said, when you go from being in a direct place, when you go from like that movement initially to like slowing it down and having to like take a pause, that's when you get the not the reflection, that's when you kind of get like those downloads. That's when you get like the messages that you probably wouldn't have heard or probably wouldn't have saw when you're in that place of movement. You know what I'm saying? The retrograde is planning, and then the direct movement is action. You know what I'm saying? Retrograde is like lights, camera, direct is action. You feel me? So yeah, so I also noted to take a look at the elliptical shapes, more intense when they're exaggerated. I'm gonna probably go into that like later on down the line of like elliptical loops and shapes, talking about like the planet, the earth, and things like that. Like I said, I really want to get as much as I can as far as the basics of like what you can look for in your own personal chart. Then we'll go into the birth chart, and then we'll start going a little bit deeper into like the more intense things. I'll talk about that another time. Okay, so Jupiter and Saturn are actually the most frequent to go into retrograde. I feel like Mercury could kind of go in there too, but Jupiter and Saturn are planets that usually frequently experience retrograde periods. The loops are flattened and less intense, but there are more frequent. I could say that, but then I can also say it just depends on how you play it. Really, the experiences that you do go through in life, the obstacles that you do go in life, is really about perspective and how you look at it. It's not to say that things aren't hard. It's not to say that you don't go through the ups, the downs. You know what I'm saying? It's not to say that those things don't happen. It's just saying like, how are you taking the lessons that you've learned and basically being able to experience in a way where it's different, so you get a different outcome, or a different perspective of like what initially it is that you are experiencing up front, you know. This is also a play what did I say? Outer planets, most are already retrograde. Yeah, most planets are already retrograde. So there's going to be some planets already that you'll see in your chart, and also like just planetary wise, that are going to be retrograde periods anyway. They move a lot slower, and they take time to move through and learn, and you know what I'm saying? So there are going to be planets like that for sure in your own personal chart. And like I said, I will be doing going more in depth in retrograde planets. You could definitely check that out on the Patreon account, patreon.com/AraneaeStorm, and we're going to go deeper into what retrograde planets look like and what you experience through those transits within the retrograde period. Tower card moments. So this is where you experience things, like I said before, breaking down, things that have to be reset, things that you got to go back to the drawing board and regroup. But it's also a personal time for growth. You know, like I said, you can go back to the foundation that you have set, and you can see if your foundation is rocky. You can see if your foundation is solid. You can go back and be like, okay, so is this working? Is this like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there anything that I could adjust? Is there anything that I could switch? You know what I mean? To make these things move a little bit more in the flow versus going against the grain, and specifically when things start to begin to go direct. So personal planets retrograde, that's your inner world. Outer planets retrograde, example, Jupiter, Saturn, out of touch. Wanting to shift society, generation, or the world around you. So like I said, personal planets like, you know, your sun, ascendant, moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, even Saturn, you know, like those are, and even Saturn I know is generational too, but like these are planets that have to do with like what's going on inside of you. You know what I mean? Like, but then the outer planets are like things going on in the world. So we do have a lot of planets right now. And if you even look at the chart right now specifically, you'll see like on one side of the wheel, everything's like direct. And on the other side of the wheel, you'll see for this current chart, I promise you, I'm looking for a laptop, y'all. I'm going to get to the point where like I got the wheel so y'all could see exactly what I'm seeing and stuff like that. But you'll see on the other side of the chart is like damn near most of the planets on one side of the wheel are retrograde. You know what I mean? And it won't stay like that, but for the most part, specifically, that's what you're seeing. So you'll see that retrograde. I put Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto. The Uranus retrograde also too, just to touch on that real quick, went there with retrograde August 19th and will be there until January 18th. And then there are more than 3 retrograde planets, like I said before. Again, when you have more than 3 retrograde planets period in your chart, or if you see it on the outside, you're in need to find your own way in whatever house placements those things are in, and also the aspects, whatever's aspecting this particular energy within your chart. I think I'm gonna go ahead and close it there, and then I think I'll talk about the Two of Pentacles and the Libra retrograde, Mercury retrograde in another video. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stop it right here. That's just a little brief overview of what the retrograde planet, or just what it means for station retrograde. And you can use that and look that through your own personal chart, but also know that this is a collective energy that we experience as well. And yeah, we'll be coming back with, like I said, the Mercury retrograde Libra, and talk a little bit about what that means in to the Two of Pentacles in tarot. So yeah, y'all, I think that's about it. Y'all already know what it is. It's Rainstorm checking in, checking out without a doubt.